Let's jump to question 3 from this past paper, which tackles the properties of water and extreme plant survival. Part A asks us to outline why water's high specific heat capacity is so important for living things. The trick here is linking the physical property to a biological benefit. Because water requires a massive amount of energy to change its temperature, it provides an incredible thermal buffer. So, write down, it provides temperature stability in aquatic habitats, preventing rapid temperature fluctuations for the organisms living inside. Boom, easy mark. Part B shows a paramecium and wants us to outline the importance of contractile vacuoles in freshwater protists for 2 marks. This is a classic cellular transport question. Freshwater is hypotonic compared to the inside of the cell, meaning water is constantly rushing in by osmosis. Without protection, the cell would burst. For your 2 marks, write, first, water enters the cell continuously via osmosis due to the freshwater environment. Second, the contractile vacuole collects and expels this excess water to maintain osmoregulation. And finally, Part C asks us to explain how xerophytes like this cactus are adapted to survive hot deserts with minimal water for 2 marks. The IB examiners want structural and physiological details here. First, look at the leaves, or rather, the lack of them. Cacti have modified spikes instead of leaves, which massively reduces the surface area available for transpiration. That's 1 mark. Second, mention their skin or metabolism. They have a thick, waxy cuticle to block water loss, or they use chem photosynthesis to only open their stomata at night. Put those structural and metabolic weapons together, and you have got full marks on this page. Hi, let's move on to question 4 from this past paper. This page is a goldmine for core molecular genetics and evolution marks. It covers DNA structure, mutations, and evolutionary evidence. Let's maximize your score on these 3 sub-questions. Question A wants a 3-mark compare and contrast of DNA and RNA structure. Remember, to score all 3 marks, you should clearly state what they share and how they differ. For similarities, note that both are polymers of nucleotides made of a sugar, phosphate, and nitrogenous base, and both use adenine, guanine, cytosine. For differences, hit the big 3. DNA uses deoxyribose sugar, features thymine, and is double-stranded. RNA uses ribose sugar, features uracil, and is single-stranded. Mentioning 1 similarity and 2 differences easily secures the full 3 marks. Moving to question B, we need to describe 2 types of DNA mutations for 2 marks. Type 1 is a base substitution, where a single base is swapped for another, potentially altering just 1 codon. Type 2 is an insertion or a deletion. Explain to the examiner that adding or removing a base causes a frameshift mutation. This alters the reading frame for every single triplet codon downstream, drastically changing the protein. Finally, question C asks how analyzing DNA-based sequences provide evidence for evolution. This is all about the molecular clock concept. Your first mark point is a species that share a closer evolutionary relationship will have more similar DNA-based sequences because they diverged from a common ancestor more recently. Your second mark point explains the timing. The number of differences in the base sequences is proportional to the time since divergence, which allows scientists to construct precise evolutionary lineage trees. Break it down with these specific key terms, and you will ace your molecular biology exams. Drop your questions below and follow for the next page. Question number 5. Describe mixotrophic nutrition. This has only 1 mark.
Mixotrophic nutrition is a mode of nutrition in which an organism obtains energy and carbon both by photosynthesis, which is autotrophy, and by consuming or absorbing organic matter, which is heterotrophy, depending on environmental conditions. Euglena is called a mixotroph because it can obtain food in two different ways. When sunlight is available, it carries out photosynthesis like a plant. When light is limited, it switches to heterotrophic nutrition by absorbing or ingesting organic nutrients. This ability to combine autotrophy and heterotrophy is known as mixotrophic nutrition. Distinguish between parasitism and mutualism, giving an example of each interspecific relationship. Parasitism is an interspecific relationship in which one organism benefits while the host is harmed. For example, tapeworm living in the human intestine. Mutualism is an interspecific relationship in which both species benefit. For example, mycorrhizal fungi in plant roots. The fungi receive sugars from the plant while the plant gains improved water and mineral absorption. Part C. Explain how intra-specific competition affects natural selection. Individuals of the same species compete for limited resources, such as food, water, light, territory, or mates. Individuals possessing advantageous heritable variations are more likely to survive and reproduce successfully. These advantageous alleles are passed to offspring, increasing their frequency in the population over generation through natural selection. Intra-specific competition occurs when members of the same species compete for limited resources such as food, water, space, or mates. Because resources are limited, not every individual survives or reproduces. Individuals that inherit advantageous traits have a higher chance of surviving and producing offspring. These beneficial alleles are passed on to the next generation, increasing their frequency in the population over time. This process is known as natural selection. Students commonly lose marks by saying only euglena can photosynthesize without mentioning heterotrophic nutrition, confusing parasitism with predation, forgetting that natural selection acts like heritable variation, not acquired characteristics, saying the organism adapts instead of explaining that allele frequencies change across generations.